Hi, my name is Sakinet, and today I'm attempting to recreate the Butterfly Pea Tea blend from the Cthulhu mythos-inspired game, Cafe Dreamland. This video was inspired by othermeika's recreation of the sea salt mint choco. It's a fun watch, and I put it in the description if you want to check it out. Before getting into the details, if you don't know what Cafe Dreamland is, it's a fun and beautiful game made in the RPG Maker engine. You play as Yatsume, a high school student who suddenly finds himself a bartender, there's no underage alcohol of course, for a wacky cast of guests. You get to peek into their past and help them with the struggles of the drinks you make. Though the game gets serious and tragic at times, no matter what drink you make them, they'll always turn out okay in the end. There are a lot of goofy wholesome bits too. The most mysterious part of all, though, is Yatsume's own past, as he seems to be suffering from a little amnesia. I especially love a certain part at the end of the game. Ah! You ain't never won Oshi Miko-chan! Anyways, let's get a move on to the initial analysis of the tea. So, when you make drinks in-game, you see a menu of recipes. Let's take a closer look at the entry for Butterfly Pea Tea blend. Alright, there are three main parts we'll look at: the ingredients, the description, and the visuals of the drink. Let's start with the ingredients list that's off to the side first. Three, simple ingredients: tea leaves, sea potion, and freshly picked fruits. The game also gives us a description of each of these ingredients, so let's also take a look at those. Here's the tea leaves. It says, a blend of various teas, including black tea, sencha, and hojicha. Believe it or not, all of them are made from the same leaves. Alright, so, I wasn't expecting that. I don't even know what half of that is. In fact, I actually forgot to check out this description and just went off the original drink description, so we're just gonna Google search these teas just to forget about it later. So first, we have black tea, and then it looks like sencha is a Japanese green tea, and after that, hojicha is also a Japanese green tea, but instead of being steamed like sencha, hojicha is roasted. Okay then, we know that the tea leaves are a blend of black and green tea, giving it strong and bitter taste from the black tea, probably a mild and grassy taste from the sencha, and then also a roasted and savory taste from the hojicha. I actually thought the tea leaves were always just a blend of black tea because, well, when the master and Yori were chatting about black tea in the cafe, they never mentioned the tea blend has green tea leaves. It pays to pay attention. How about the sea potion? It says, the extract used to make this liquid comes from small creatures that dwell at the bottom of the sea. Smells like the sea. Offers a dashi-like flavor when put into miso soup. Ah! Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I was juggling ideas like maybe blue food dye, sea salt. I just keep thinking of salty things or mineral things since it's made from sea bottom dwelling creatures, but I kind of don't want to put salty, crunchy stuff in the tea. I think we might just not touch it. And if we do, salt feels like the best alternative. I wish someone would make a recreation of all the potions though. And for the freshly picked fruits, it says, a plethora of different fruits. Among them are varieties the master himself discovered at a lakeside forest. Definitely the easiest for sure. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna get fresh fruits, but I at least know I'm aiming for a fruity taste. So let's move on to the description of the drink itself. It says, a butterfly pea and Darjeeling black tea blend, glowing in a clear blue. Relieves the drinker of any negative emotions, such as the fear towards reality. Dropping in a lemon candy makes the drink change color. Alright, so I'm not sure if the tea blend used here is meant to just be butterfly pea tea and Darjeeling, or if the description is simply confirming Darjeeling is the black tea mentioned in the tea leaves description. I think I'm just gonna say the latter, because it just makes more sense to me. Not to mention, tea leaves as an ingredient is never used in any other drink, so it feels kinda weird to make a whole green black tea blend just to pluck out the green tea for one drink. Now then, we have an idea of the tea blend, a clear color to shoot for, and also, we should prepare some lemon candy. Finally, let's take a look at the appearance of the drink. Looks like we've got a clear cup, a bright blue color, and a yellow flower to aim for. Nothing amiss from the description. Alright then, let's summarize. What ingredients are part of this concoction? A black and green tea blend including butterfly pea tea, maybe sea salt, fruit or something fruity, and lemon candy. That means the flavor is going to be bitter and savory, but also fruity and a little sweet. For appearances, my ultimate aim is to produce a bright blue color in the drink. I also have a clear glass cup and a yellow flower to find. Which I didn't. Initial analysis complete! With that, we can head into the first of 2 rounds of initial trials. Before we do though, I should say that I don't expect we can achieve the perfect color and taste of the tea with the actual ingredients stated in-game. The most obvious reason is that I don't know how to magic a sea potion out of nowhere, but the biggest reason is because Butterfly Pea Tea already has a natural blue color to it, and adding anything else like, oh I don't know, the red, brown, or black tea is going to quickly distort the color. Not to mention I couldn't get hold of Darjeeling, and I didn't know that I should get Sencha or Hojicha. But instead, I'm using the black and green teas that I do have at my disposal. So I'm taking creative liberties, as well as dividing the final rankings by best color, best taste, and best authenticity according to the ingredients, and then best overall, in my opinion. Okay, so let's start on the first of 2 rounds. The reason why I split up the test trials into 2 rounds is not because I had a grand intentional plan. I was initially testing for color to see how the Butterfly Pea Tea would steep and how it would react with black and green tea. In the process though, I accidentally watered down the flavor of the tea, meaning I'd have to start over on that front. I will still talk about the taste test in the first round, mostly because many of the teas in the second round are just in the first. Let's start with the Butterfly Pea Tea itself. Also, from here on, I'll shorten the name to Butterpea. Anyways, this is my first time brewing Butterpea, and I didn't go in having Google searched it at all. I had no idea the flower would dye the hot water almost immediately. The color goes from a light blue to a super dark purple blue in like less than a minute. That means the final tea blend I use isn't going to include Butterpea at first. Instead, I'll brew the incomplete tea blend first, and while the cup is still hot, I'll dip a couple Butterpea flowers with chopsticks and wait for the color to turn just enough blue. As for the taste test, I was totally expecting the tea to taste like how the flowers smell. That is, it smells a lot like fruity jam or dried prunes, but it didn't have any taste at all. Curious if that's just the case, I went Google searching. I found a range of reactions on different web pages and, well, really just read it. Apparently, depending on the batch, Butterpea tea can taste like nothing, like dirty socks, or just mildly grassy. The flower is best used as just a color changer. Finally, I put in lemon candy, and surprisingly, I could smell that sweet and sour scent right away. The color change also isn't immediate, but it does change the color from like a blue to a purple. If you're not stirring, then the color and the sweetness just kind of sit at the bottom. And the same kind of happens if you're just naturally drinking without mixing the stuff together. So at first, you get slowly hit with the sweetness before you're at the bottom of the cup and just taking hit after hit. If you are stirring while drinking, then it's some nice old hot lemon water the whole time. For pretty much all the taste tests, you can smell the lemon scent straight away, and it always adds a nice sweet and sour taste, and the color changing process tends to follow the same steps, so I won't mention this again unless something clearly different happens. Overall, it was pretty fun brewing the Butterpea, and the lemon candy makes for both a cool party trick and a nice flavor change. For the next 2 trials, I wanted to try out some fruit teas I have. This is because I was trying to be lazy and just make an easy fruit insert without using fresh fruit. But then it turns out adding the fruit in general was kinda hard and also kinda unnecessary. But why don't I introduce the fruit teas I used first? These are called Berry Blues and Dragon Fruit Dreams. Both have their own unique mixture of different fruits and flowers. As you might expect, both have a very sweet scent and taste, but while Berry Blues is more jammy and blueberry tasting, Dragon Fruit Dreams is more spicy and pineapple forward. Pretty much keys in on that fruity and sweet taste we're looking for. Unfortunately, they both also tend to come with the same problem. Some of their components dye the tea red. That means we're going to get a purple color right off the bat, even if we're closer to the taste. It means I'm gonna have to pluck the red stuff out by hand if one or both of these fruit teas make it into the final blend. It also means if I were to add fresh fruit, I have to be really careful about the kinds of fruit I add and how that would affect the color. In the end, I ended up mostly discarding the food aspect because I didn't want to make a super long series of trials and then also a long video. I simplified the food aspect to just sweetness and lemon candy. To round off the first round of trials, here are the black teas, Gazelle Black Tea and Fujian Baroque. Before I get into the black teas themselves, because they have such a different flavor profile from each other, let's get to a very important similarity they have. They dye the tea red. That's right! It's basically impossible to create a single authentic version of the game's Butterfly Pea Tea herb blend without sacrificing the black tea or the bright blue color. Unless, of course, there is a black tea out there that doesn't produce a red color at all. In any case, I still tested the black teas out of curiosity. How would they change with the lemon candy, and how would they change the color of the butter pea? Let's begin with the Roselle black tea. The smell is actually pretty similar to the butter pea in that it smells sweet and jammy like dried prunes. In fact, that's because Roselle is a flower that produces a dried cranberry taste. There's a fruit, and the color too. Fortunately, unlike the butter pea, the flavor is like it smells. The tea is very sweet forward with a bit of the strong bitterness of black tea. The natural color is a nice deep but clear red, and when brewed with the butter pea, the color turns a mysterious shade. Even more so when the lemon candy is added in and stirred around. The already sweet taste also goes well with the candy. Overall, the Roselle black tea feels like it's the best match in taste so far, just on its own. How about the Foudron Baroque? I chose this tea because I wanted to hone in more on the in-game blend's savory bitterness. I also just wanted to throw a dart at the shelf of black tea. The flavor profile in this tea is far stronger in a seaweed-ish kind of way. That's like the best way I can describe it. The color of this isn't very red, but rather a dark yellow-green. Unfortunately, that does still kind of mess with the color, but it definitely produced an interesting-looking shade, especially with the lemon candy. And speaking of the candy, it actually didn't mix too well with the tea. The sweetness was just kinda off with it, and it also just completely rode over the Foudron Baroque when it was stirred in. Overall, the tea by itself is pretty nice, but it's lacking a lot if we want to reach the intended flavor, plus it doesn't play well with the lemon candy. And that's it for the first round of trials. In the second round, I test more for flavor this time, and just brew the butter pea with the teas for the hell of it. Oh, and if you were wondering why there were no green teas in the first round, I was still working under the impression the master had only used a black tea blend, but I do expand into a green tea here, singular one, because I don't have much. First, I retried the black teas from the first round and pretty much came to the same conclusions. Foudron Baroque is not it, while Roselle black tea is very it in terms of taste. The colors were unfathomable. Unfortunately, when it comes to these trials in particular, my phone couldn't capture the dark colors of the teas, so these pictures are quite a lot lighter than how the colors actually look in real life. Honestly, you should try combining butter pea with black tea yourself. Then I tried a new black tea called Puer Dante. So far, I'm pretty unfamiliar with all the teas and did some, though not much Google searching, just raw taste test. I threw another dart at the black tea shelf for this one. This tea is also strong and bitter, like the Foudron Baroque, but it doesn't have a seaweed feeling. Instead, it's a lot more reminiscent of, like, black tea jelly. Not bad on its own, but it also didn't mix that well with the sweet lemon candy. Too bad, because you get lots of cups out of re-steeping it. And the color was... And for the final tea, I tried out Dragonwell green tea. This is where I wondered if I could eke out a nice balance between color and taste, but it was also pretty dispirited after all the taste test. I was also jittery after all the black tea hits too. This was my first time drinking Dragonwell green tea, and it was pretty interesting. Off the smell, it's grassy, like green tea, but also seems strong and bitter like black tea. When brewed, there's also a sweet taste to it too. The color is also a light green, really promising, and when mixed with the butter pea, even though I did steep it a little too long, the color turns into a clear blue. The lemon candy also works well with it, and the sweetness melts well with the tea. In other words, it's a pretty good matchup against the Roselle and the Dragonwell. But well, we'll just have to see how the final rankings go. With the trials done, let's see them. The grand titles we have in store are Best Authenticity, Best Color, Best Taste, and Best Overall. For Best Authenticity, of course, this is a tea blend I couldn't make myself. A tea blend of Darjeeling, Sencha, Hojicha, and Butterfly Pea Tea flowers with a side of freshly picked fruits. And all the sea salt. I ended up removing sea salt completely from all of the trials because it kind of made the tea taste super bad. Congrats to our fictional real-world blend! Next, we have Best Color, which is Butterfly Pea Flower and Hot Water. That's right, folks, the best combo has no tea at all. In the end, the best attempt to get the brightest and lightest blue color meant no extra additives. Except for the lemon candy, of course. I actually bought Jolly Rancher hot candies to put in my hot water now. And now, the biggest competition of all for best taste is between Roselle Black Tea and Dragonwell Green Tea. This will also decide which tea is up for best overall. These teas both have a sweet but strong and bitter flavor profile, despite occupying different spaces in the tea world. Roselle has the fruity advantage from its cranberry flavor, but Dragonwell has the color advantage for its light green color. Roselle. In the end, I just thought the Roselle did taste really good, and the flavor matches the intended one the best, but its flavor also felt lacking in depth and aftertaste. The lemon candy is forward, the Roselle and black tea flavor was in the middle, and then the end was just kinda hot water. Dragonwell didn't have that kinda dissatisfying end. Congratulations to Dragonwell Green Tea! I don't actually recommend any of the teas I've mentioned today, simply because I usually drink coffee. Surprise! I did start drinking a lot more tea after these experiments though, so maybe that'll change. That's the end of the video. I had a lot of fun playing the game and revisiting it again to make this drink. I learned a lot of new stuff about tea and started liking it a lot more. Again, I super recommend you play Cafe Dreamland for yourself and also watch Meika's video on a recreation of the sea salt Choco Mint. I left links to both down in the description. Have fun! Oh, and for funsies, because I wanted to mess with the butter pea some more, I also left some to steep in a bottle of vodka. Getting the light blue color was kinda hard because I kept forgetting to pluck the flowers out the 2 times I steeped them, but the color was still really pretty. Of course, on its own, the butter pea vodka doesn't taste any different. And for some reason, I got it into my head to combine the vodka with peppermint tea and lemon candy. The combo tasted like a really weird lemon cough drop.